What is going on, Packer Nation? My Green Bay Packers are 10-4 after dominating the Seahawks in Seattle. Looks like there was more Packer fans than Seattle fans. Definitely more opposing team fans I've ever seen at a Seattle Seahawks game, probably ever. And even the Niners travel well, and they go there every single year. And it wasn't like the Green Bay Packers in Seattle on Sunday night. This team excites me. They've come a long way. They're the youngest team in the NFL, and they're 10-4. All of their losses coming to teams with 6 total losses. You could say maybe they can't win the big game because they're going to have to beat Detroit, Philly, or Minnesota to get to where they want to go. And they've lost every single one of those games. They do got Minnesota on the schedule coming up after the Saints game. That would be a good gauge for the Green Bay Packers. They lose that one, and they're 0-2 against the Lions. They're 0-2 against the Vikings. They're 0-1 against the Eagles. They may be 1 year away. They may legitimately be 1 year away, and I don't like to say that. That's just how I feel. I think they're 1 year away. But doesn't mean that this year they can't do some damage, that they can't progress one more stage, get to the championship game. They could still win the Super Bowl. They could still get to the Super Bowl, don't get me wrong. But they're the youngest team in the NFL, and they're taking steps. If you just look back last season, halfway through the last season, Jordan Love, people were saying he wasn't the guy. The team was losing, and then they caught fire, and then they come into this season. They swap Jones for Jacobs, and Jacobs brings this physicality that the Packers have really never had in a long time. They've always been a finesse team, but now they bring it to you. They're physical at the line of scrimmage. My only knock for this Packers team is really just pass rush. They can't consistently get a pass rush. They have games where they have 7 sacks. They've had a couple of those. The Titans and then the Seattle game, they had a lot of sacks, but they have times in games and streaks where they don't get any pressure on the quarterback. And to me, to beat Philadelphia, to beat Detroit or Minnesota in the playoffs, they're going to have to bring pressure. They're going to have to get pressure onto these quarterbacks. They turn the ball over, that's for sure, but they just consistently don't get pressure on the quarterback. That's my only knock with this Green Bay Packers team, but they're still young, and they could still get to the Super Bowl this year. I'm rooting for them to go all the way to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. That would be absolutely phenomenal. But they may be just 1 year away. Jordan Love had a slow start to the season last year, but he was his first year starting. So I don't want to knock him for that. And then he caught fire, but then he kind of reverted back to a slow start this season. He was turning the ball over a lot. Now he's starting to catch fire. And now you can see Matt LaFleur is in his bag on play calling. They can run it down your throat, and if you bring men up in the box, they can hit you over the top because Love has that arm talent, and he shows it off a lot. The Green Bay Packers are dangerous because I believe Jordan Love is the best quarterback in the NFC. He has the most talent. Josh Jacobs is a beast. Come playoff time, it's all about controlling the clock, not turning the ball over, getting takeaways, and the Packers can beat you in multiple ways. I think the Eagles are the team that scares me the most because they're super talented. They may wind up with the 1 seed because the Lions still have to play the Niners. Even though the Niners have not played like the Niners, they could sneak a win there. The Lions are really banged up. And then they play Minnesota to end the season. So Minnesota might win the division. But Minnesota doesn't scare me in the playoffs. I don't trust Darnold. I think that come playoffs, you got to have a superstar quarterback to win and advance in the playoffs. You just look at the Niners. They have had great teams defensively. They've had stacked rosters. And every time they can't go all the way to win the Super Bowl, it's all because of the quarterback. You got to have a difference maker at quarterback to win the Super Bowl. It rarely ever happens where you just got a guy in there. Your defense has to be like 2000 Ravens good to win without a quarterback that makes plays. Just look at Mahomes. The Niners had that Super Bowl in the bag. Mahomes gets the ball last. That's a wrap. That's all she wrote. You got to have a superstar quarterback, and I think Jordan Love is a superstar quarterback. But I can't wait to see how this playoffs turns out. Super, super excited. 3 more games for the Packers. They may end up 13-4. They may end up in 13-4, 12-5, and be a 60. That's absolutely crazy. But the Packers, to me, the team that's in the way is the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Lions are banged up. I think the Packers could beat them in the playoffs. And I just don't trust Darnold in the playoffs. If the Packers played them in the playoffs, I think they beat them in the playoffs. I think the Packers beat them in Minnesota next week. But the Eagles, guys, that's the team that's going to be in the way of the Packers getting there. But if they don't get to the Super Bowl this year, I'm telling you, it's all lined up for them next season. Bringing back Josh Jacobs, Jordan Love going into his 3rd season as a starter. This young wide receiver core, they still don't have to pay any of them. They may be able to get some pass rushers, another corner or 2 for depth. So they may be 1 year away, guys, but I can't wait to see what kind of damage they do in the 2024 playoffs. I'm super excited. The Pack is back, baby. Go Pack, go!